I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is the Readathon. And I am here with a very special guest. Special guest, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Katie. I'm from A Date with Dateline.
Yes, you are. So, Katie, burning question. How do you think Dateline's been doing covering this case? Hold on, let me open my beer. No, just kidding. It's 7-Up.
Well, we're releasing an episode about the Dateline that was released last Thursday.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil that for you, but that was one that featured some interviews, right?
Yeah, it sure did. I had some thoughts. I wish Dateline had used a lot more of Sue O'Connell, who I like very much and I enjoyed throughout the trial.
So I think that people who have only followed this case tangentially through the media and even including producers of other news stuff, right? All they have heard over and over and over again is conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory, which is great for a prosecution-minded side of the story because then it sounds bananas. But if you actually pay attention to just a couple of days of the trial, it's very clear that the word conspiracy theory isn't exactly right. It's more of a cover-up. It's more of bad policing. It's more of people lying. It's not a network of conspiracy. But I do think that messaging has been helpful for the anti-Karen Read side. What do you think?
I completely agree. I think there are some nuances that if you just hear about it every once in a while, like, oh, you can really easily write it off as that bad C word, as conspiracy theory.
Right.
I mean, there are a few key pieces here that I would lead people to 3 or 4, maybe witnesses and be like, just watch these and come back to me and then tell me what you think. Also,
who would you point to? I'm curious.
I suggested Jen McCabe from Trial 1. And then I also suggested the ARCA witnesses that basically watch the entire defense of Trial 2.
Yeah.
Because it's it's strong in both, but ARCA is the selling point, right? Which is why Hank Brennan was fighting so hard to keep them out.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to sink his battleship.
Have you been paying attention to the Hank Brennan, Alan Jackson online discourse? What are your thoughts about their competing statements?
Why are you fighting with Alan Jackson? Stop.
Yeah.
And I feel like Alan Jackson has a lot of dirt that he wants to spill really badly. And I'm like, do it.
Same.
Do it. Like, what do you have? Tell us everything. Because and you know a lot. You know more than I do, I think, because you have some behind the scenes information. I try to get behind the scenes information and I can't get it.
Yeah.
I get it from you. But I think that there's just even more there. I think that there were things that we never saw.
I completely agree. I mean, well, we know Michael Easter just did an interview. He's the FBI guy that, they wanted to bring in to testify as to the badness of the investigation, but it also turns out he's a tech expert, which is really interesting. So I think he would have been interesting. I think that the investigator, their private investigator, if they were allowed to question him as you would question an investigator in any other trial, a lot would have come out. But now they're in this weird space of fear of libel in a way that they weren't during the trial, because there's much more that you can do in a courtroom than you can just say to a reporter, like when you're not on trial for murder. Like you can't say, Brian Higgins murdered that person. Like you can't unless you are 100% sure he won't come after you.
Right.
Or you have definitive proof of that murder.
Right.
He'd have a decent claim of, they ruined my reputation and my life, and it would just be another legal process that they'd be pulled into. I think there's some fear of that.
But now, if someone was to say that and say Brian Higgins came out into the open and sued that person, there would be a discovery on that.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right,
This is one of the reasons why I don't think we're going to see a civil lawsuit from any of the McAlberts. I really don't think so, because I think that there's more stuff.
You saw the interview, right?
I did. They took it down. Did you see ABC took it down?
Probably best.
They made it private on their YouTube page. Why do you think that's probably best?
I think even if you don't know anything about the trial, you're probably looking at that interview and going, who's that really scary guy in the middle? And the way he kind of controlled the interview, also, he did say some things that contradicted some other things that were said during the first trial testimony, specifically about Jen coming. I mean, that story's always been wild about when Jen initially goes into the house and the dog may or may not be there, and she either bursts in the room or she doesn't, or she walks in. All of that's always been a little bit of shifting sands, right? It's always changed a little bit, but it's changed again a little bit.
Yes, it has changed again. And, you know, I think that one of the things that's been fun is watching, especially the juror Paula, react to information she didn't have before.
Yes.
You know, Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy, asked her, do you know about the butt dials between Higgins and Brian Albert? And her face was like, oh.
Right.
I mean, those jurors, they did a tremendous job. I mean, from what I understand, they went in, they followed the instructions very literally. The whole burden is on the Commonwealth. And even the ones who went in leaning guilty, when they looked at the evidence, were like, it's not here. It's just, so they did their job, don't you think?
Yeah, they absolutely did, even without hearing from anyone really that was in. How many people did we hear from actually in the house?
Jen McCabe. That's
it, right?
It's the only person we heard from.
I have to say that was kind of smart of Brennan.
Yeah.
To not give that any water.
Well, he kind of did, though, even by bringing her in. Like,
he did, yeah, a little bit.
But ultimately, I don't think it mattered because they were able to pivot to the collision didn't happen, which is a cleaner bar for people to get over, I think.
And it's the easiest. It's the easiest thing that I tell people when they say, "Why do you think she's innocent?"
His body.
Say, they can't prove there was a collision.
Yeah. Well, not only can't they prove it, there wasn't a collision.
Right. There physically wasn't.
No, yeah, exactly.
Science has shown that this person was not. If the pictures didn't prove it to you, maybe these two very smart gentlemen will be able to prove it to you.
Right.
This didn't happen.
So what were your overall impressions of trial 2? How much of it did you watch, and what were your favorite parts?
I would say I watched 7/8. I watched almost, there's a few people that I find very hard to watch, and so I just sort of skip, but that's okay.
I skip the tech people, the tech day, those technicians. I'm like, I can get the gist of what they testified to on Twitter. It's
right.
like Adam Lally just saying numbers and then confirm. I mean, it's confirming like, yes, that's 847.B. I'm like, this is so boring.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And also anytime, Lally's difficult.
Yeah.
So just, it's something in the monotone. I don't know. My overall takeaway, did you ask me my overall takeaway from trial 2?
Yes.
I kind of wish they'd called more people in the house. A little.
For us, right?
Yeah, for us. I do wish then we would have, how many interviews would we have competing? Because from trial 1, they were pulling from grand jury testimony, the other agency testimony, and then the trial testimony. I would have liked for them to have to keep it up one more time. Not calling Proctor. It didn't matter at the end, but I was really worried about it the whole time, that it would matter. I was worried. I just don't know enough about courtrooms to be able to see if it was going to make a difference for the jury. They got the texts in, but not all of them.
Right. They got the ones with him and the ones that his friend group were on, but there was another thread.
The sister.
Yeah, there's a whole other thread that was really interesting. And I think this is what I've come to believe, that the defense read the jury really well. I think that they saw what the jury responded to, and they knew that there was enough there and that they didn't need to take the risk. Because it would be a big risk bringing him in, especially if he cried on the stand about losing his job over bad judgment. Like, there could be one person whose nephew is a cop who could be like, oh yeah, I could see that happening to my nephew. You know what I mean? So I think that they probably read the jury well.
Do you know Michael Proctor wore shorts on Dateline? He wore shorts.
That was a choice.
Dad shorts. Put some pants on. You're on Dateline. Show respect to Andrea Canning. I'm so mad. Your wife put on jeans. Also, I don't know. I'm sure his wife is doing it out of the goodness of her heart. But I don't want her to be out there covering for, that's hard. That would be really hard to have to cover for those texts.
That's a pattern, man. Sending women out to take all the fire. I mean, that's what Jen McCabe has been doing. She's been taking all the fire. You know, Carrie Roberts, Coco, all these women. Brian Albert.
Coco. Coco should have been in trial too.
Exactly.
What
Coco with her
happened?
sourpuss.
I wanted Coco. I feel like they could have gotten maybe some.
She's an unhappy person.
just like one wrong question. And that was, he was having a hard time in trial one, sort of keeping the story straight. I remember very clearly. And then also Jake, who I talk a lot about the case, who comes on A Date with Dateline a lot, he really wanted donuts back. He wanted to know more about
Julie.
the donuts. With Julie.
Yes.
He wanted the donuts in the car with the coffee in the car on the birthday.
For those who don't know, what that's referring to is a story that came out in trial 1 that Julie Albert stopped by the house early in the morning, dropped off donuts and coffee for Brian Jr.'s birthday. And it was like a weird detail, right? It was designed to...
I think that was to get her there.
Okay.
I think otherwise it was like, did you call your other sister and let her know? And so it puts her on the scene and to be like, what? What's going on? Okay.
That's right.
Oh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
The 507 call, it stuck in my claw about the Dateline. That call, but I believe that Karen calls Jen and says, we need to go out. I don't know where John is. That very early morning call on the 29th. Then Jen hangs up with her and calls
Coco.
Yes. It is Coco. It's not Brian.
Right. But she could have talked to Brian. She could have. I mean, that's the whole thing that never came up in any of these is that phones can be used by people other than the owner of the phone. Like she may have handed the phone to Brian or whatever. It's plausible to think it could have been Karen is calling me panicked. I told her to come here instead of to your house. I'll figure it out. You know, I'll delay whatever, and then we'll come eventually. I mean, it could have been something like that.
Okay, but they both claimed that they didn't speak at that phone call, right?
They both claimed that they didn't speak. That phone call was new this trial. That had not come out before.
Oh, that's why I didn't recognize it. Yeah. Okay, because I got a little stuck on it. Because Karen actually mentions it in her interview with Dennis Murphy. She says, Jen said, hang on, let me call my sister. So Jen actually tells Karen she's going to call Coco and then calls Karen back and says, come pick me up. We'll go out and look for him.
Right.
And then they go back to John's.
Yes, they go back to John's to drop off Karen's car, where she allegedly says, look at the huge hole in my taillight, which is not captured on the Ring video in any way, them even like stopping for a second to look at it. And then the video of them leaving the house that Carrie Roberts changed her story and said it was when they were leaving. That video is missing.
Okay, great. all the relevant camera, just that would be one takeaway from this trial. All relevant camera feed footage is gone
or has not been given over or has not been handed over. Did you hear about Officer Barros's interview on TikTok?
I did. I saw it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've been keeping up.
It's like you live here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I do. I live where you live. Mm-hmm.
So Barros claimed, and it's making some news, that before trial 1, he told Adam Lally in a trial prep interview that the picture in the Sally Port looked nothing like Karen's taillight as he remembered it in her parents' driveway. And Lally said something like, "Are you sure you want to say that?" And then, more importantly, never told the defense about this conversation. I always assume there's a bunch of Brady violations in this case, but what are your thoughts?
That's a really clear one. Is there anything that can be done?
There are people likely to say, why would you pursue this? Or even other judges who would be like, she was acquitted. It didn't affect the outcome of the thing. But the bottom line is she had 2 trials.
Yes.
And the first one, if they had had that information, they could have prepared and it would have been very different. Barros, I don't know if you remember at the first trial, surprised on the stand. People did not know he was going to say that.
I think Lally, probably now knowing this, thought that he might, in the words of Devers' commissioner boss or whomever Devers spoke to, do the right thing. I think that Lally thought that might work. Mm-hmm. That, saying, are you sure you want to say that, might be enough to get him to be a little more at least vague. And he was not vague in trial 1 or in trial 2.
He's a cutie.
Yeah, I really like him. I was really glad he did an interview. He had to be really careful, but I was really... Because he's perfect, because he doesn't have any skin in the game. He's not from there.
Nope.
So that was excellent.
He's the cop you want to pull you over. He's the cop you want to deal with when you report a crime. He's the cop that you want to handle your kids' misdeed. He is that guy. And I loved what he said about when she asked him if he would have, been aware, gone outside of all those things. And he was like, I'm Portuguese. Like, we always look out the window when anything is happening outside of our houses.
That's the perfect answer. I love that. It's so endearing. He's so sweet.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that you are friendly with Aiden.
We text.
Does he have any information? Is Karen thinking about doing a civil suit of her own?
Well, I can tell you right now that I am interviewing him tomorrow, or at least scheduled to. And I plan to ask him that question.
Great.
And if you have any other questions you want me to ask him, feel free to email me, because Mel was actually really looking forward to meeting him. And I just think it's so interesting because Mel and I have never met in person. And I have no reason to believe that Mel would be anything other than, respectful of Turtle Boy accomplished here, but really dislike him otherwise. And she lands exactly where I land. Like he does things that I would never do, makes decisions I would never make, but he's getting shit done.
But there are results here.
Yeah, he's
clearly.
a fascinating person. He had this tweet this morning about some lady texted him or DM'd him and was like, if only you would change your language, more people would tune into you. And he was like, can you imagine? Of course he doxes everybody. Can you imagine saying this to somebody? And I'm just like, nobody can accuse you of not knowing how to engage with your audience. Like no one can accuse you of that. Like you use words that I would never use sometimes, but like I see some of his tweets, he uses the R word. I'm like, Jesus, no. But that's just, he's provocative and he hasn't like changed. He's just the way he is. He's like a libertarian, like small L libertarian type is what is my read. And I'm going to ask him that too. I'm going to be like, is that a fair characterization of you? Small L libertarian. No one can tell me what to say. And I think he says things like that because he's planting the flag and then no one can tell me what not to say ground, if that makes sense.
I also had one more question that actually came up when we were talking about the Dateline episode. Dateline talks a little bit about Karen and his friendship and how they spoke all these times, this 189 times before trial one. It's something like that. And I said, I'm not surprised at all. And I said, because sometimes you need a F them friend.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have those friends in your life that will play devil's advocate and try to get you to be sort of the best version with you. And then you have that friend that's like, all of these people suck and I'm going to like curse them out with you on the phone. Yep. And I was like, he's the F-em friend for Karen. I'm
Absolutely.
not surprised they talked every day. She needed that friend.
I think she was also an invaluable source because when her team would discover things, she could say to him, you should check out this thing because we think X. So she gave him a ton of leads. She was an invaluable source. And for a long time, he didn't reveal that they were in touch because he actually is very good with sources. He's very, very good at protecting sources, at keeping sources anonymous. He's not indiscreet. When somebody comes out as a source, he'll just be very open about it. It has a lot to do too with his criminal cases because they subpoenaed his phone. So they have all his phone records. They know who he was communicating with. And so at some point he had to just come out and say, yeah, I've talked to Karen 180 something times, but she never told me she was guilty. You can look at all my texts. You can look at all my emails. Like she never said that. I think that they prosecuted him in large part to get his devices so that they could know what Karen Read knows. I really believe it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of dirt. There's a lot of dirty stuff. And I hope something happens. I don't know. I haven't been encouraged by things I've been seeing, but I'm hopefully something will shake out here.
I think a civil suit would be very interesting. It's very atypical to sue civilly after you've been acquitted. However, again, 2 trials.
And millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And her livelihood is what she was doing before is like not available to her. Yep. I'm assuming. They took her fucking car.
Yeah, that's right.
Her like $90,000 or whatever car. They took that and they never, I'm assuming they still have it or they're going to give it back to her now. But like her car is destroyed. Yeah, I mean, they materially owe her. Aside from just getting her acquitted. And Hank Brennan is still making statements and implying that she did it post-trial after being acquitted.
Can he get in trouble for that?
I don't know. I don't really know how the rules are in Massachusetts. I know that there's like some ethical concerns with him. There's a lot of ethical concerns with the trial. I mean, he's a gaslighter extraordinaire.
I'm angry at Hank. Yeah. He used his powers for evil. Mm-hmm. And I don't like that. He's quick and he's sharp like a fox. but I don't like it because I think he knew she didn't do it. I think you have to know, right?
Yep.
With all that evidence and all that stuff you're trying to cover, you kind of have to know that's not great.
Yeah. Yeah, the pre-trial hearings were very revealing. They were very, very revealing. The stuff he tried to keep out, his excuses about the video, all that stuff. Like they should have, I mean, there should have been a Brady violation appeal issue around the fact that they never revealed the Higgins video. But that quote, it was new. I mean, she believed him. Beverly Canoni believed him when he said that we didn't see that before. It was discovered. It's like, this is the most bullshit set of excuses around all this missing video that I've ever heard. And yeah, I agree. I don't think he's, I don't like to make it personal because a lot of times lawyers act a certain way in court to get a result. It's their job. He does not seem, he doesn't read like a good person. He just doesn't, in my opinion.
I think that really also became clear with the x-rays. That seemed like a very clear cut. You didn't show your expert these. That expert was not lying on, it's really clear. Welcher did not know there were x-rays. He's not that good of an actor.
But they should have shown him the x-rays because then he would have come up with a bullshit test to show how you can have no broken bones when you get hit by a car. Because he was totally working off of their theory. And so he would have come up with some recreation to demonstrate how one could get hit by a car, die with no broken bones.
Come on. Please have it involve paint. Please, I don't know what he would have done. On Dateline, they called it low tech. He went low tech. And I was like,
That's a very kind way to put it. So what were your thoughts on some of the other witnesses? Who stands out for you when you think about trial 2?
Dever, for obvious reasons, Dever. And she was early in the defense. Dr. La Posada, like everyone else, excellent, just phenomenal witness. Because the first tech witness they had, who I believe you called, what did you call him? Data Daddy?
Yes.
Data Daddy, he was first and I was worried. So that stood out for me because I was like, oh no, this isn't like clear enough. Maybe we should have put on Dr. Wolf first. I was worried. And so that stood out for me in a tummy turning kind of way. And then for the prosecution... What's his name? Sorry, I want to say the other word that Julie Albert called him.
Buchanan
on the stand for 45 days. Just making the job so hard for the defense, would not give up that Proctor was, just starting with that. Was Proctor in charge of the case? I wouldn't say in charge, just pulling teeth from him. And if you didn't look shady before, you do now. You need to teach your witnesses, by the way. Brennan needs to teach his witnesses to answer just yes sometimes. Sometimes you just need to say yes when it's a simple question and move on, because belaboring the point makes it look worse and worse and worse. It's just, ugh. And then also Jen McCabe's attitude change.
It was amazing. Like she was like on Xanax or something on the stand.
She was calm. She was tan. She was smiling at Jackson at a few points. And then she said what got me is that she went, if he called her on something, she goes, oh, I'm sorry.
I don't remember the specifics of what I said. Like that was a very coached response. That was a way to get around the you told a different story last time thing. And if she didn't have a couple of weird moments, such as lying to the FBI 4 times. And, other stuff like that, I could imagine a jury seeing this person and being like, why is she being painted as the villain? She just seems like kind of boring. But Carrie Roberts also saying, I talked to Jen McCabe this morning. For me, it was like I hit pause and I ran into Kevin's office and I was like, you're never going to believe what Carrie Roberts just said. And of course, Kevin was like, who's Carrie Roberts again? And I had to go back and explain it. So it's like, these moments that really pop in my mind.
The 200 phone calls as well, that she had made so many phone calls that the deletions weren't deletions, that they had just pushed out of the phone because she had 48-hour time period, the level of phone calls. Yeah. And then when you see how many there are, now that I saw somewhere else, it might have been a Microdots video that showed like a very distinct layout timeline of who she's calling right after at around 12:30 in the afternoon. So we're getting into the afternoon. All those phone calls, calling Brian Albert, then calling Carrie Robertson, staying on the phone with Carrie Robertson, calling this person back, and then trying to get a hold of, really wish they'd called Tom Beatty. Was he on the witness list?
He was on the witness list for the defense, and they did not call him. And I wish they'd called him too. His role in this is very intriguing to me.
He's one of the first people she calls.
I know. And I wonder why she would call him, because didn't she tell Karen that he might be at Tom's house? Like,
were they friends? Were John
knew Tom Beatty, I believe. They did know each other. And
did he live down the street?
He lived down the street from the Alberts, from my understanding. But I sort of remember that she had at some point said that she thought he might be at Tom's, that John O'Keefe may have wandered over to Tom's and spent the night there. The other way the Beattys come into play is that the daughter was, I guess, Colin called her for a ride at some point.
12:31 or something like that.
Which is a very important time, as we know, and that she then received threats if she talked about it.
That information I would have liked to come out, but he wasn't going to be able to be called the minute Judge Bev said Colin couldn't come in. Right. What was her reasoning for Colin? Was it he was a minor at the time?
No, it's because I don't know. It was actually, there's no reason. There's no reason why she wouldn't let Colin come in. There's really no reason. It was like, because you didn't meet that burden of proof last time, but they kind of did with the Knuckles situation. And like, they would know, I think, how to question him better this time. And, I really think Higgins is at the center of this, but I don't not think that Colin was at the house. The back bends these people did to make it as if Colin wasn't there at all. And then as if Colin left at 12:10. There's absolutely no reason to. I mean, he wasn't in the original list of people who were in the house when they first talked to the police. Mm-hmm. That's sus.
Beyond. One thing that the prosecution did, though, I did notice that the chatter online, the tech stuff, the way that the phone expert laid it out, if you're just to sort of look at that at face value and not look any further into that all looks very damning until you look at autopsies. Right. Or, I mean, I haven't looked at specific autopsy photos, but until you're told there's no broken bones, and then you're like, wait, what?
If you look at their experts' phone stuff, yeah, absolutely.
They're experts.
And I believe, and you probably heard me say this, that John was not the one who looked at his phone at 12:32. I mean, I think they may have used his face, but I think whatever happened to him had already happened to him at 12:31. Mm-hmm. And I think that the stares, some of those motions, and it's like, it didn't have to be him, especially if something happened to him as soon as he went inside the garage or whatever, because these are cops. And they take phones from people all the time. Like, they know what to do with a phone immediately. They wouldn't even have to confer about it. So putting it in airplane mode, or, using his face to open it and changing something. Did you know that Michael Easter also said, when he was doing his interview, that as the question that Kevin's been asking this whole time, why didn't they just get subpoena Google for the search? And that they absolutely could have done that. And if they didn't do it, there's likely a very good reason why they didn't do it. Or they did it and they didn't like what they saw, so they didn't share it.
And then that's a Brady violation, right?
Yeah, that would be a Brady violation.
You have to share. Okay. And then
anything
the defense
exculpatory, you have to share. The defense can't subpoena Google. They can't.
They can't. Of course they can't.
Yeah. The FBI can subpoena Google, and the prosecution can subpoena Google. I know this because in the Eric Spofford case, which is the subject of the 13th step, that Google is how they got the guys who threw the bricks at my colleagues' houses, because he Googled their addresses. Like, they just looked for searches from one device that looked for two addresses at the same time, I guess, and they found him. That was like, oh, that's this guy. And then they found, receipts for one brick, like shit like that. It was crazy. But yeah, Google can be subpoenaed by law enforcement.
Could maybe someone that works at Google that's following the case just do it?
They probably have pretty strict rules about not doing that, I'm guessing, if they don't want to get fired.
The person that owns the company.
The Google owner, yeah.
Yeah, but let's just put that billionaire out there.
Absolutely. Why not?
Plenty to lose.
They can do a mitzvah to all the free Karen Read people.
I really need to know. I hope, is anything going to come out in the O'Keefe suing Karen lawsuit? Is there any way to get any more information from that lawsuit?
Yes. But I don't know how, I mean, it will be a question of like what becomes public and when.
Is Alan Jackson staying on for the civil suit? Did I read that?
No,
or is that,
she has she's a civil law firm, but he did say in his interview with Howie Carr that he planned to come back to Massachusetts soon, I think to represent Karen Reed in a different courtroom. I don't know what that was about, but she has a civil litigator team. So I don't know if he's coming to help with that. I don't know if he's coming for some other reason.
Have you reached out for an interview? I bet they would with you.
I have not. I have not reached out for interviews with anybody. I mean, I guess I'm just so used to commenting on media that like making news myself feels, although I do that at work, feels like weird to me. What about you? Who would you want to talk to if you could talk to anyone?
I think I could get the most from AJ, from Alan Jackson, for sure.
I think that
he's the most apt to talk. I've watched these interviews with Alessi and with Yannetti, both whom I love. I mean, Yannetti crying.
Did you cry when he cried? I cried when he cried.
Yeah, of course. I got super teary because it was this motion. It was when he did this. I was like oh, no, stop that. Stop it, Dad. Like I couldn't do it. But I've seen and they're very careful. They're too careful. I need someone a little more reckless so I can get some. I need someone who's going to talk to me off air, so I can have the information.
That's right.
What I'm waiting for in this case is I know that they will release the sidebars.
I haven't seen anybody ask the jurors about that day that they were all questioned individually. Have you?
Oh, no, not at all.
I'm very curious about that. Why were you all questioned individually? What happened?
Somebody make a face? No, it was something about social media, right?
I don't know. It could have been them. They were discussing the case with each other, and the guy who was in charge of them heard it because Bev did give an instruction afterwards saying you cannot deliberate, you cannot discuss this case even with each other. She said that after, so that it might be that. It might be social media. Although social media I don't think a person would be able to stay if they did that and were caught, unless it was something benign like. You can't reach me tomorrow on Facebook because I'll be in court all day. I'm sitting on a jury. Like that's kind of benign.
But they know where you are. But you've tagged your location.
That's up to the reader to interpret what that means. So I think that might be more benign. But I don't know. I've always been very curious about that. I need to know about the rock. I absolutely need to know where that rock came from.
Why was it there?
I don't know. I mean, there's a totally. I'm going to put that on my list of questions for TB. There's a totally like reasonable, benign thing, which is maybe the current homeowners found the rock and we're like, hey, this was probably on the lawn when this happens, and maybe we should put it out there to indicate they have the right house or whatever. I don't think so. I don't think they would do that. It was there and then it was gone. And I need to know. And it looked like it had a blood stain on it or a fake blood stain on it, which may have been the intent, maybe a coincidence. I don't know. But the Albert Rock will haunt me until the day I die unless we find out what happened.
That and Chloe, the two haunting things. What happened to both of those things?
Yep.
Poor Chloe.
So, any other standout witnesses for you or moments from the trial that you just keep thinking about?
No, I just keep getting further. The trial seems to bring more questions. The more that I look into it, it's every day is something little and something new. I was very much stuck on that 507 phone call for a second. The fact that I have so many questions is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So many. It's like everything, you're not getting the full story. Yeah. And it's a combo of it not being allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a witness not being allowed in. This is what I didn't get. When the McAlberts, or I think it was specifically Brian Albert, said that there were all of these people involved in the conspiracy. Like it had to be 40 or 50 people involved in the conspiracy. And I said, no, what you need are a few key people, and then you need a bunch of people that don't ask any questions.
Exactly.
That say exactly what you tell them to say.
Exactly.
And say whatever the Dever quote was, do me proud. What did they tell her?
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Tell the truth. I'm here today to tell the truth. My job depends on it.
One question I have always had is, were Chris and Julie in the house?
Yeah.
They say that they drove by and then went home. And it's like, why would they say that in particular? Because they knew that the GPS in their car would show them going there? I don't know. But I always suspected that they were in the house. And I always wondered, like why that wasn't something that was questioned more. I think it was in trial one, and it kind of came up a few times, but the donuts thing really puts them in the frame. The fact that their son is Colin kind of puts them in the frame. And I wonder if them denying they were at the house is yet another way to try to get Colin out of there. Because they eventually had to admit that Colin was there until 12:10 or whatever. And then he and Allie McCabe submitted those screenshot, likely falsified text messages with the weird date formats. And those were accepted as evidence, which is insane.
Those screenshots, I'll never forget. I mean, yeah, I would have liked to actually have seen Allie McCabe back in this trial, just because she was the one, I think probably with the biggest slip up in trial one, with actually saying he wasn't there when John was there.
That's right. Colin wasn't there when John was there.
Also, she had a very interesting story involving a dog, which immediately is like, okay, so you took Chloe out of the house that night too. You took the dog out because you have a story about a dog. You're linking things to a dog so that if it comes back that someone saw you in a car with a dog or et cetera, you have some sort of reasoning for why you have a dog, because there's no way that the dog was in the house after that night, which is highly suspicious as well.
I completely agree with you. What you hear on that video from the dash cam is so revealing in what is in it and what isn't in it. Because you can hear people yelling on the lawn. A dog bark, I think you would 100% hear if it were coming from the house, which was right there. I think you would have heard it. And they said that Chloe slept in their rooms. The dog would probably be barking at their window, which was right next to the scene.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that a dog bark, at least a faint dog bark, would come through. I mean, my dogs go, and I always use my dogs as an example, which I know is not a great example, but they're actually like chiller than Chloe. And they bark at everything. The UPS guy, a turkey walks through the yard, whatever. Like they go insane. And a dog bark, like especially an alert bark, is very piercing. It's a piercing, percussive sound.
I think you're totally right. I also had a question actually about the dash cam footage. We don't see any neighbors, but I'm told that neighbors did come out. Now, the deputy police chief across the street did not come out, correct? But
neighbors took pictures of, I don't know if they came outside or not, but I know that there are photos that neighbors took.
Really?
Yeah, those have come out on social media before of 32 or whatever. They took a photo out of their window at the scene. So neighbors were up for sure.
So they were.
Not Kelleher.
With the ring cam?
He checked his ring cam the next day. He did.
I know he checked his ring cam.
They have the ring cam. They have it. I believe they probably have it.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I also think that you needed to see Brian Albert's phone records. Whatever was in the cloud, I think it was really important to see who he called, because I think it was probably, there might have been a call across the street.
Yeah.
I think there might have been a few things. I don't know, but they didn't win that, right? Bev said no?
No.
That was a motion, wasn't it?
Exactly. Also, Brian Albert destroyed his phone right before it was due to be handed in.
Of course, but wouldn't there be cloud information?
You'd have to subpoena Verizon for that, and they didn't. They just didn't do any of these things. And again, the defense can't do it. I mean, they could have subpoenaed Colin Albert's phone records, which they may have. They could have subpoenaed Brian Higgins' phone records, which they may have. But instead, they placed this order for their phones in order to give them a chance to prove that they were irrelevant. And what they did was they threw them in the garbage.
Oh, no, two separate garbages, right?
That's Higgins,
a SIM card in one.
Higgy threw a SIM card in one, his phone in the other, and then went to the liquor store on the base to fill up on Jack.
Oh, boy. Do we think the FBI has all those records? Do you think the FBI
That's how they knew. How would the defense know if the FBI didn't tell them that at least that Higgins phone had been destroyed at the military base? The FBI is how they knew that. So clearly they were paying attention to Higgins way before trial one. I would love to know what the FBI knows. If I could have one thing, it would be let me read that 4,000 page file. I'd read the entire thing.
Are those ever released? Those are secret forever, right?
I mean, unless there's an indictment someday. I don't know if you read the Sandra Birchmore indictment, but the Matthew Farwell indictment about the Sandra Birchmore case is long, and there's a lot of juicy stuff in there. And by juicy, I mean disgusting, because he's a disgusting person and it's a disgusting crime. But you definitely get a sense of what they have, how they got it, and they basically list all of it in that indictment. So if somebody is ever indicted, we will learn a lot.
I have been watching the Sandra Birchmore case as much as I can stomach.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, I read too many texts, and then it went off the rails. That's upsetting.
It's really, really upsetting. This poor woman with all these issues who came to associate violent sex with love.
It's so sad. It's on every level of sad.
It hits on every level of sad. And that family is the reason why we know about it. That her family is the only reason why we know about it, because they were dogged in their pursuit, you know, and good for them, but it's horrible. It's just horrible.
And that's what brought the FBI in, right? It was Sandra Birchmore.
We don't know. We know that they investigated the Sandra Birchmore investigation and case, and we know that he was indicted as a result of that. The other thing we know is they keep pushing off his hearings. Right now it's scheduled for August. It had been scheduled for like April, and it was scheduled for July. And there's a reason they keep pushing them back. And there is a decent chance it's because he's either giving them information or because they are investigating other people kind of around this and, you know, want to have, and maybe they will say something that they can use against him. Like, there's a lot of reasons why they could be pushing it off, but it's notable that they pushed it off until after the end of the Karen Read case. It's very notable. I mean, you've got Tully, Fanning, Kevin Albert was involved in that case. Sergeant Lank was involved in that case. The ME's office was involved in that case. Michael Morrissey was involved in that case. Guarino was involved in that case. These are all the people who could have potentially said she was murdered or investigated it properly or not lied about it, one of those things, whatever they did, and gotten this guy way early. And he still hasn't been charged with any state crimes.
What?
He's only been charged federally. He has not been charged in Norfolk County at all.
We need to start over. We need to erase the whiteboard, and that county needs to start fresh. Put new folks in. Let me ask you one question, too, that bothers me very badly. Speaking of all of these officers that need to get fired, why didn't Jen say officer down?
Excellent question.
And why didn't Alan ask her about that?
It's an excellent question.
She says, there's a guy out here in the snow.
Yeah.
There's a guy who's unconscious in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a version of there's a guy, there's a man. The guy never went in the house. I mean, they do. Yeah, it's always the guy, the man. I don't know if she was told not to do that. I don't know why she didn't do that, because obviously if you say officer down, you're going to get a different response, yes. Right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have guesses, but I also don't know why there wasn't a bunch of uniformed cops outside that courthouse during the trial because of the death of a Boston police officer. I mean, there were uniformed cops out there to keep the crowds at bay, but there were no uniformed cops showing support of John O'Keefe ever during either one of the two trials.
I had questions about that
as
well. It's
so telling. Well, you hear, I mean, to hear Barros talk, he can't be explicit about certain things, but the impression you get, and from people I've talked to in Massachusetts, law enforcement people, the impression I have is that people know about the corruption in this unit. They know about how fucked up Norfolk County is. They know who Brian Albert is. The Boston cops all knew who Brian Albert was. He helped solve the Boston Strangler case. He's a high-profile cop.
Right.
And they knew he was a bad guy. And so they didn't think she did it. So it's like, yeah, you want to show support for John O'Keefe, but they can't show up supporting a defendant in the case of a woman who killed a cop. But there's been very little police like spokesperson-y stuff around this case. And maybe it's the commissioner saying stay out of it or whatever. But from what I hear, also cops from other districts, they all go to each other's funerals. They all go to each other's whatever. They show up at trials. They do all of that.
That day they were at
they were in New
another
York.
cop's funeral.
Yep.
I'm wondering, too, if the reason that they've been told, if indeed he is a very high-powered, by the way, everything I've said is alleged.
Yeah.
Don't come
it's
for
all
me.
Our opinion. It's all our opinion.
Yes, all our opinion. But like, if indeed it's been told, don't say anything, don't ruffle the feathers with Albert, is it because he's such a high-level detective, every case that he's ever touched, it would cause that many problems in high levels?
That is a very good point that I have not thought of before.
If it is these big cases, then yeah.
He was in the fugitive unit. He investigated murders. He did a lot of high profile and a lot of just big stuff. And if it came out that he was somehow involved in this, it might be to the Boston Police Department's advantage to have him stay in the clear. That is a really good point, Katie.
I think it's got to be that, because Proctor right now is having alleged lawsuits, or there are lawsuits coming out looking at cases that Proctor was involved in.
Yes, and currently involved in. This Karen Read stuff is being brought into this guy Brian Welsh's case. This other case, Brian Welsh, by the way, also had a Google search, which said, how do I dispose of a body or something like that. But then his attorney is saying, They said this time wasn't true in the Karen Read case. So why should it be true here? Same people prosecuting the Brian Walsh case. Like, so they're just bringing in all this stuff. They're bringing in Proctor. They're bringing in Cellbright. They're bringing in all that stuff. They might call Ian Whiffen. Who knows?
They did this to themselves, though. Mm-hmm. If they had just not done this, if they had just not gone for Karen, if they had not gone for the girl, and then not up to the charges to murder 2 to try to get her to plead down, which was... Insane. Everyone can see what you're doing from 50 miles away. You're charging her with murder 2, so she pleads to manslaughter or homicide with the vehicle and leaving the scene. You're trying to do that. Yeah. And so if you hadn't drawn so much attention to this case, it would have been better for you. Now it's going to be a lot worse.
That's right. That's right. I mean, they also charged the wrong person. Like, even if a person might be inclined to plea just to get it over with, she is not that person. She is the person who will say, I will never admit I did this for my entire life because I didn't do it. I will never let anybody think I did it. I will fight anybody that says I did it. You know, and like 90-something% of cases like this end in pleas, or of all cases end in pleas, every court matter. And a lot of those people didn't do it. But it's like, it's over if they say they did something else. Then it's over and they can put it behind them, or they can go to prison for a short time and move on with their lives. And she is not that girl.
No, and I'm glad she's not. I'm really glad, because it's shown so many things here.
And the people are legitimately frightened of the Alberts. Legitimately.
I'm scared of him.
Yeah. He's a frightening person.
I don't know him, but I'm like, oh, no. I don't know. I don't know. Just, there's an energy. Sorry, there just is.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's very, very intense and
aggressive. He radiates aggression.
Yeah, and really aggressive about not coming out of the house, and you're just dead wrong.
Yeah. To
try to say, I would take a bullet for John, and then immediately say, and apologize for my Boston accent, but I can't help it. Well, I don't know why everyone always asks me this question about why I didn't go out of the house that day. What am I supposed to do? Run out there in my underwear and start running yellow tape around the fire hydrant? Yeah. Yeah,
pretty much.
That's what you're trained to do.
Or put your robe on and your slippers and go out and do CPR. Like, or at least come out and say, what the hell's going on?
What's going on? Do you guys need help? Back up. Like,
can I call someone?
It feels also very antithetical to his, what obviously is a tough guy Boston cop persona, to not go out there. Oh no, the girls have got it. Canton PD's got it.
I have one question for you, and then I will let you go. Actually, I have 2 questions for you. One question is
about the vomit, because I don't know why they didn't bring it up in trial.
Oh, the vomit inside his underwear? Yeah.
Yes,
same.
I wish that we had
inside of his shirt, inside of his underwear, inside his clothes. So clearly he had been moved. So I think that was going to come out with their expert, who was going to show evidence that he'd been moved, but then that evidence was not allowed in. That's what I think. So my question for you is, I have always made a lot in my head of that 6-second phone call between Jen McCabe and her sister, Coco, who was inside the house just after they arrived at the scene. And after she called 911, she called her sister, 6-second phone call. And when the tape is enhanced, that was recorded on John O'Keefe's messages, because Karen Read left her open to John O'Keefe's line phone in the back seat. Did you know this?
I am just remembering. This is not a rabbit hole I'm getting a pin.
Yeah. Okay. So in the back seat of the car that drove Karen Read over, I think it was Carrie's car, Karen had been calling John O'Keefe's phone, and his message was still recording when she saw his body and flew out of the car, and she dropped her phone in the back seat. So a bunch of stuff was recorded on that outgoing call to John on John's phone. It was recorded on his messages. And one of the things you hear is, after Jen calls 911, you hear audio of her inside the car. We know she made a 6-second phone call to Nicole, which Nicole says she didn't get and wasn't answered. I'm like, did Brian pick it up? Because again, no one ever asked her, well, did Brian get the call? But it sounds in one of the enhancements, like the microdots enhancements, like she said, they're sending help. That's what it sounds like she said. But she said something at that time that the phone call was made, and she claims that it didn't connect or something. So, but it sounds like she's saying they're sending help, and that's literally all she says, and then hangs up. So if that's, the question would be, sending help for what? Like, what are you talking about? If that's what she said. But if she said anything, the conversation should have been longer than 6 seconds. I've always made a lot of that phone call in my head, the fact that it exists, despite what she may have said. And just like Alan Jackson, I've always thought, I don't care if she did the search after 6, because the fact that she did the search is very fucking suspicious.
The problem is that she has multiple different stories for you mean the 6 a.m.?
Yes.
So, right. It's funny how everyone that doesn't know about the case thinks that's like the ringer of the case. And I'm like, it's not. It's suspicious, but there's so many other things as well. I'm going to try to listen to it. They're sending help.
That's what it sounds like. I'm not sure, but it's like one of those ghost hunter videos where you hear a sound and then people say what it says and then you hear that. So it's sort of like that, but she says something.
Police on their way. I'm trying to think of what you could say in 6.
What would you say that wouldn't immediately trigger them to come outside or ask more questions?
Well, I think that only goes to the theory that everybody already knew.
Yes.
The question that I have more is, allegedly, if you believe that this was something that took place inside the house the night before, obviously the plan was to show that John was hit by a plow.
I think so too. I agree. That's my opinion as well.
When did that change?
I think it changed during that 9 a.m. Before that 9 a.m. when they called the police back and brought them back over.
Yeah, I think donuts, coffee time.
Because initially she didn't say anything like that to the police. And then she called them back at 9-something, 234 Fairview. Jen McCabe did, and said, we have more to tell you. So that's when the plan changed, was between that 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. After Karen was gone to the hospital, after whatever, that's when they decided to talk about it.
And there was cracked tail light.
But even if there wasn't a cracked tail light, they probably would have done the same thing. Because they never liked her. Karina Kalakikis liked her, but I don't think these people liked her.
She had more information that she was supposed to share, didn't she?
She did. Her information, I think she was going to say that Jen McCabe told her something. I don't remember. Turtle Boy tweeted about it. Karina is going to testify that Jen McCabe told her something.
It was something about that night.
Yeah.
It was something that she overheard that night. And then I think Jen told her not to say it. It was something. Like it was like a dual.
Yeah.
She was strongly encouraged to be quiet.
Something like that.
Which it seems like that's a lot of what went on in this case. I don't know. But you're thinking no basement, right?
I've thought for a long time about the garage.
You did.
I said it on the show a couple months ago. Like, I've really been thinking about the garage, like, for a long time, because it makes sense of so much of the other stuff. Tell him the guy never came in the house. Exactly. Because he didn't. He went into the garage.
He did. He went into the garage to say, hey, we're in here, come in here. And all you're doing is literally going like right at
you make a right instead of a left. That's it.
It's a front door, side door, garage door. And so it's right. Yeah.
The kitchen is to the left. The garage is to the right. And if they were in the garage talking shit about him or whatever, they were like, come in here. And they couldn't be keeping Chloe in the garage because there were people over and Chloe wasn't good with people.
100%.
So all of this makes sense to me. It makes sense of almost all of the phone data, except for the stuff that happened in the 230s timeline, which I don't necessarily think was John. And it makes sense of all of it.
230s.
Yeah, like the 231, 232, locking the phone screen with the face kind of situation. Like
Yes.
So okay. And also the up and down the stairs. Do you remember in the first trial? So there's steps, there's 3 flights of steps recorded on John's phone. Do you remember in the first trial that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert's story was that Brian Albert brought Brian Higgins upstairs to look at some photos?
In his son's room, because it was so detailed. My son's a Marine. Come up here. Look at these family photos. I mean, the amount of detail in that moment when they've been drinking all day. Yes. I'm like, okay.
And then that's not part of anyone else's story. Jen McCabe didn't testify to it. Nobody testified to it. They just said this trial, she said they were off in the living room talking, Higgins and Albert. She said they were in the adjacent room, maybe looking, she said on the stand, maybe looking at pictures or something. I don't remember, but they were in the other room talking. So she put the picture detail in, but didn't put the upstairs detail in. And then when Jackson showed her the picture of the house, I'm so glad he brought this up in closing, she pretended like she had never seen that garage door before. Why would she do that unless she was trying to distract away from the garage? Like, these people tell on themselves, in my opinion.
In everything in all the omissions they tell leaving Colin out. They told in trial 1 leaving the Ford Edge out. Remember, list all your cars and nobody mentions the Ford Edge, right? Because that's the car that's in question. Also, Nicole did not get the script right in trial one. Nicole says that they were looking at pictures in the family room.
Right. I think it was Brian who said they went upstairs.
Brian says they went upstairs, and Brian Higgins then also gets the story wrong and said, I've never been upstairs in their house, not ever.
Yeah, it was Albert. So that is like, why would Albert say that?
But it's also the problem that I think that gives me the hardest time with the phone data is how tight that timeline is, that it's like you're looking at 12:31. 12:32.
It's not that tight if you imagine a world in which this all happened at like 12:25. It's way less tight.
When he actually gets out of the car, because that's the time that his Bluetooth disconnects.
Correct. They may have been, this is all supposition. They may have taken his phone and opened it with his face so that they could text Karen and say something like, why don't you go home? I'm staying. They could have been planning to text Karen, but then they saw she was already gone. So that was unnecessary. See what I'm saying?
I just can't believe you wouldn't be so worried that she wasn't going to walk in the door. What was their plan?
I think that everybody was really drunk and they probably made a bunch of stupid decisions. I don't think this was like a calculated in advance kind of plan. Or maybe they didn't initially realize that she was outside. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they thought he came over by himself. I don't know. I think that maybe it was Higgins and Albert going to tell John that Karen and Higgins had fooled around or slept together. Because that whole her going to his house thing is very sus. Like, I don't think they just made out. I mean, maybe they could have just made out. Who knows? And the fact that she ghosted him after meant it was bad, in my opinion. But my final question for you is, what are you doing now that this trial is over? How are you coping?
Clearly still researching the trial. But I haven't given up yet.
Yeah.
I'm still in it.
Same.
I'm watching all the jury interviews, obviously. I'm watching everything that I can get my hands on. I'm just basically waiting for Alan Jackson to make statements all day. I haven't moved on because I think the next big case on the docket is one that I'm dreading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is Koberger.
Yeah.
But no, this case is fascinating, I think. And people say John O'Keefe's memory has gotten lost. And I'm like, people really do want justice for John and they want corruption out. So this case, people need to realize that this case marries two things people are very passionate about, right? Corrupt police, possibly, and justice for someone who died way too young. I mean, honestly, it might have been an accident. We still don't exactly know.
It could have been something dumb. And it probably was something dumb. I don't think they planned to kill him for sure.
No, I don't think so either. The cover-up is so much worse than the crime and so much worse in this case.
They also may not have thought he was going to die, even if he was incapacitated. They may have thought we'll wake him up later, he'll wake up later or whatever. So, they could have left him where he was for a while and then realized later, fuck, we're in trouble. And I think that Mel, we came up with this idea a couple months ago that is a world in which none of the younger people at the house knew because they waited until all those young people left before the adults all got together and talked about this.
Yeah, I think all of that is red herring.
Yeah.
I think Julie Nagel going out and telling her brother to go home because a crime had just happened. No, I think it's very obvious that the brother was dropping off,
100%.
Allegedly not picking up someone. I don't know why they didn't get around to that in trial, but I'm like,
you mean pot? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, something.
It's something innocuous. It's something dumb,
And not being super, because otherwise you're super irritated that you drove, it's like 20 minutes or something away to come. Yeah, no, it's something that you're getting a little bit of money for or whatever. It's something, it's something, maybe allegedly. But I have to ask you one more question.
Sure.
The bone temperature that was sort of shocking in this trial. That was new. I felt like in trial 2, or I didn't remember it from trial 1.
It was not in trial 1.
That it went down and down and down.
It stopped going down.
At what point?
At like 1:00 in the morning or whatever. It stopped going down. It only went down to 55 degrees and it stayed there until early in the morning. And what the prosecution is saying is that it stayed at 55 because they were intimating it's because it was under his body. Remember, it was only under his shoulder. But also, the ground was frozen, allegedly.
Yeah.
The ground was cold. It was very, very cold. The phone temperature more aligns with it being in a garage than it does with it being outside in the freezing cold.
Yeah, that was my question also. I mean, there's a lot of things that say he probably wasn't outside all night. That's why Dr. LaPosada was also so valuable. The hypothermia discussion is very valuable, and we didn't get that trial 1. And I thought that was fascinating about this is like...
I agree.
what you can expect from
I
a
agree.
hypothermia, someone who dies of hypothermia complications, and this is not that.
The question I wanted him to ask her is, why did Scorty Bello get it wrong? Because I'm sure her answer would have been, this is an easy thing to miss, especially if you're told somebody was outside. But I looked at this and I just looked at the totality of it, and that's not what it was. But I could see that she would think it might be, given what she was told.
But didn't Dr. La Posada talk specifically about the stomach?
Yes, the ulcers inside the stomach, which Scorty Bello said were signs of hypothermia. And then she was questioned, isn't it usually more than 50% of the stomach lining that has this if a person died of hypothermia? And she said, it usually is. And he said, is it possible that? And she kept saying, possible.
Possible. Right.
Yeah. It's also possible that a UFO came down and...
Yeah, and beamed him up and then beamed back down on the lawn. And there was never any video.
That's right. Anyway, all right, Katie, thank you so much for joining me on this readathon and just stream of consciousness conversation about this, which we all need to keep having. I think I've gleaned is that we're not done.
You're not done either, right?
No.
I mean, yeah.
No. And if anything else happens, we got to talk again so I can get your take on the new thing.
I'm here. I'm paying attention. I'm probably not going anywhere for a while. I get pretty focused on things. So, and there's a mystery to solve here.
There is, and the mystery has not yet been solved. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.
Partners in Crime Media.